All right, so I'm going to make a video about serving Christ, what it means to serve, okay? This is manifestation of the highest intelligence that a human can have, is to serve Christ. The highest intelligence is that of serving others, okay? Um, that's what the highest intelligence is being of service to others, because that's an emotional intelligence, and emotion overrules logic. People will do things for love that goes against their own survival. Okay, logic is like it's kind of more survival based, while emotional intelligence is more like spiritual survival based. But there's an emotional intelligence, which is like a fusion of logic and emotional intelligence. Anyways, so how do you, like, what is this? Serving Christ? Like, okay, Christ is refined love, but it's also authoritative. Okay, because love is not authoritative. Okay, let's write this down. This is an important one to write down. Love is not controlling slash authoritative. We'll get into that. Because if you love someone and you try and control them, well, you're obsessing. You're wanting to change who they are, which is like, not who you're in love with. So like it's when you try and control someone, like it's not, it's obsession. Okay, and so that's why we have free will. Only a God of love can give free will. Okay, this is what I say paganism 101 is. This is what pagans said, how there's our free will is evidence that God is love. And so everything exists within God, okay? And so authority exists within God, therefore it has a purpose, okay? The boys in blue, police officers, you have SWAT team, Army, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all right? Those are physical forces of authority. Okay, it's not love. Like what those people do when they arrest you and take you to jail, like that's not love. Like they call it the Department of Corrections, but like that's the system is using you to correct itself. You kind of say that. Anyways, and so the word, like how I'm using words to speak, like that's like words, like the word, okay? The word is authority. This is where Christ manifests as being authoritative love, is through the word, not what people who use physical force to call it serving. Okay, like notice they're serving you, like you protect and serve, and you join the service. Okay, like, oh, I was in the I served for X years in whatever branch of the military. Hell's Kitchen, whatever that guy's like, yes, chef. Okay, because it's a service. They're providing you, they're serving you with food. So since it's a service, it must be done with that kind of discipline. Okay, like that's the psychology of service, is that when you serve someone, it is done with an authoritative love, but like discipline. We're fine. 2 seconds. Yeah, unlock the door. All right. So Christ is authoritative love. That's really what the word is. The word equals Christ, which equals Authoritative love. That is where love manifests as being authoritative. It's through the words. That's how you serve Christ. Okay. One of the most famous phrases. You got served. Okay. Like, how do you serve in that movie where you do a dance in front of somebody and then they go, oh, you got served. Like how is that, rationalized? How do you do a dance in front of somebody and rationalize that you're serving them? It's the same psychology as joining the service, military, the police force. Okay, like how do you serve someone with, a bullet, basically? It's a physical force. It's that energy. It's that type of energy that is incorporated into the word. Okay, and that is where authoritative love actually manifests itself, is through the word. That's really what emotional intelligence is, and like that's what women have. So like that's how men should be more like women. Okay, this is stuff Carl Jung and his transhumanism agenda. Okay, like when you can use emotional intelligence, you begin to refine your understanding of love. And when you can do that, you learn more about yourself. You learn more about what truly makes you happy. Because you're kind of like stepping outside your comfort zone. It's like riding a roller coaster for the first time. Like you see it looks crazy, but then you go on it and like, it becomes addicting. It's your new favorite thing. Self-reflection is kind of the same thing. Like people look at some of the spiritual stuff and like they want to like cling to their books, okay, because they can't let go to go within. They need that external. And until you can let go of that dependency, you're never gonna find God. Okay, you're never gonna find that personal relationship to God because you're constantly depending on things outside of yourself. Um, Validating yourself. Knowing how to validate yourself. And it's pretty simple, like everyone deserves love. Like, no, there's no human that doesn't deserve love any more or any less than anyone else. Everything is equal within God's great creation. So, when it comes to serving Christ, like, that's how it is served. It is served through authoritative word. So like Christians today, a lot of biblical, scriptural Christians, like they think serving God means to like go to church, like get on your hands and knees, worship, pray like 9-11 times a day. That's like worship. Worship is obsession. Okay, if you're in a relationship with someone now, you don't worship then. It's mutual. Things are equal in a relationship. Okay, no one's like above anyone else, and that's what worship really denotes. It's obsession. Because love is equal and mutual. So when it comes to like that's how you become like quote unquote enlightened through serving Christ is knowing how to use the word, how to speak truth, bringing God to others, because God is going to know what's best for that person's soul than me. Okay, so that's my intention, because once a person has a better connection to God, God will be able to lead them much more intently. Okay, and so that's why I don't tell people what to do. I don't know what's better for anyone than God. Okay, like it's not my job to say what's better for someone than what God has planned for them, because then you get into spiritual karma. Okay, and that you obviously like that's kind of what men are for in a lot of ways. Is men are the vessels to take on spiritual karma by being the protector, by being the defender of his woman, his loves, his family, his home, which is the earth. You take on spiritual karma when you have to take another soul's life, another human's life, in order to defend and protect your loves. So, it's not my job. It's not anyone's job to say they know what's better um, for you than what God has planned for you. Okay. Um, okay. So, authoritative love, serving Christ. And that's really, I guess that's really it. That's what it means. That's truly what it means to serve Christ. Is to be. So Jesus is always shown with an exaggerated heart. Same thing with Buddha, to show their devotion, discipline, commitment to love. Um, and that's what that is what they were known for. Like it's what they said, what they spoke. They say that no animal makes makes such an intimidating sound as the lion. The lion makes the most intimidating sound an animal makes, and that's really what humans are. That's the Lion of Judah. Why they killed Jesus? Because he went around correcting people. Okay, it's what he did with his mouth. That story in the Bible is true, except Gabriel impregnated Mary. Okay, that's Gabriel was one of the Crusaders' sons. Michael was the Crusader, and Gabriel was like its thing that it used to like spread the seed. Um, like that was like their master. Like Hitler had brown hair, brown eyes, but his master race had blonde hair, blue eyes. Obviously, he was not using his own seed to create that race. Same thing with the Crusaders. Okay, like they had things that they used to basically go and forcefully impregnate all of the female priest class back in the day. And when they did that, that's when Jews made it so that you can only be Jewish if your mother's Jewish, was to like absolve the women from being ravaged, pillaged, whatever. So Jesus was Jesus Christ. Like, yeah, he was more of a lamb. If you really study that story, the way he did what he did, he was kind of a lamb. Um, like a product of his environment, I guess. But anyways, so this is not about Jesus. It's more about serving Christ, because Christ is the feminine spirit. Okay, Jesus was the male body. Okay, and same thing like Buddha. Okay, like Siddhartha Gautama ascended to Buddha consciousness. So Buddha and Christ are synonymous with like the same thing, which is love consciousness. And there's a psychology to love, because we're plugged into a collective consciousness, and so that's where that psyche comes from. Is how the collective consciousness works on this planet. So there's something coming out from within the planet that is evolving the consciousness of this planet. Okay, it's not coming from outer space. There's stuff that's inside the planet that's like bleeding out. Okay, it's effervescent. Okay, it's like emanating different, I guess, dimensions. Um, and there's a bigger universe inside Earth, the universe that we're in, basically. And there's an energy coming out from within that universe onto the surface of this planet, and that's what is evolving the consciousness of this planet. That's why it says the meek will inherit the earth. Okay, like that's literally what that means. Is like heaven is just like another earth, but it's like we're in the upside down world, and like Stranger Things. Like that's what this world is, and then through the singularity, is like flipped. So okay, and that's what our purpose is. Is to use language to sing God's truth, the human body was made to sing all day. Like that's why we have organs in our bodies. There's organs in churches. Okay, that was the first language, was a song. But when you speak truth, when you speak emotional intelligence, it's like singing a song in logic with using like words, like rap. Okay, like rap is just like rhythm and poetry, but like the rhythm is um, emotional intelligence, and like the poetry is logic. Okay, and that's kind of what serving Christ is, but it's done authoritatively through the word, though. Okay, so you're not using physical force to uphold rule of law or whatever. Okay, um, it's the humans is what calls it law, but it's really like um, ethics and morality, but like with a force behind it. Again, like protecting, serving. Okay, like they're serving you with Christ. They're telling you that's what they're doing. Like that's literally that's the whole. The boys in blue, like the Nephilim, blue skin in the Bible. Okay, like they are the ones serving Christ in like physical form. Like, and that's how they. That's why it's like you can serve someone with a dance. You can serve someone, with a bullet. Like, oh, I joined the service. You're sacrificing yourself, for your country, and then, and then the service that the inner city, police force serves you with. Okay, like you see how they're serving people. They're shooting them and putting them in jails. And so it's again like it's a physical. It's that energy with, but in the form of spoken word. And once there's more on this planet once there's more of this on this planet, you're going to see a simmering down, God slang language, a dampening, lessening of chaos. These people trying to find identity within themselves. It's this whole like transhumanism. People are trying to find identity within themselves, and like that's their identity is Christ. The Jews serve Christ. That's why you see like the Star of David, like wherever you have police, sheriffs, like this is like what they wear. It's the sheriff's. Now then it's a 5-pointed star because it's too obvious. That's why they changed it. But like it's like I think everyone knows like that's the sheriff symbol. Like it's in the incarceration. It's all over like the incarceration systems too. Because they're that's how they're serving Christ. Okay, that's how Jews are serving Christ. Is they're the ones that are um, upholding this. They're creating this inner city war. Okay, like the word Semitic. Okay, like means ghetto. If you look up the the history of the word ghetto, okay, this is a Jewish word. Semitic equals ghetto. And like that's what police jails are doing is they're starting an inner city war, except the people that are starting it are also funding the police force. The same. It's these the Orthodox, some of these the Jewish mafia, I'll call them, in New York. They are the ones who are profiting off of that system. But that's how that's why it works. They're serving people with Christ. It's what they say they're doing. That's what they say they're doing, and that's how they can get away with it. And it's why people just accept it, is because they understand how Christ operates in the collective consciousness. Um, I'm just gonna write something else down. So yeah, okay. So that's they're funding both sides of the war. So like lights, camera, action. Like when you take a picture of this person's mugshot, what is the purpose of doing that? What is the purpose of having their face in court. Like it's to dehumanize you. Um, but like, where else do they use cameras just as much as they do in jails is Hollywood. So there's a direct connection, with the lights, cameras, action between, like, all the camera usage and taking a person's mugshot and all the camera usage that goes on in Hollywood. Okay, there's a direct, like, overlap to that. And then there's, all the crossover of, people in the Jewish mafia, that are in Hollywood, that are like in the this whole legal system, with the jails and the sheriff, and how they control that, but it's just it's their form of serving Christ, really. Like, that's what that is, and that's how they can get away with doing that. And like, their system's coming to an end though. Like, that's like they're doing like something else though. Like, that's not how you serve Christ. Like, it's all about, like, the language. Like, if you go to Google and look at your local courthouse, it's going to say, like, court interpreters. Okay, so, like, these are people who are, like, interpreting law, which is like what the Talmud is. It's just a bunch of rabbis' interpretations, and that's what Jesus did. Is he was known for his interpretations. Okay, Jesus was not, anytime you see Jesus standing and speaking in the Bible, he's interpreting. Which, when he's sitting and speaking, he's teaching. Okay, and so that's why when you have these interpreters of law, which are like lawyers, judges, etc. Like Google, look at your local courthouse. It's going to say court interpreters on Google Maps. And that's what it is. Is you need, you need someone to, like, interpret the law for you. You need to pay. If you can't afford to pay for someone to interpret the system you live in, like, you're pretty much screwed. So, it's yeah. Let's see here. What was I talking about? There's a Jew's interpretation of Torah. Is that's what the Talmud is. But, like, law, it's real. Law is really like the psychology of love. Jews just call it law, and that's how they serve Christ, by calling the psychology of love a form of law. To them, that's a service of Christ. And the way that they uphold that through physical force, though. So it's when you break into that physical boundary, like, that's the thing about some of that. Like, I understand some of it to an extent, like, you got to protect your family and whatnot, but, like, like, they're instigating. Like, that's the problem with some with these. Like, they're intentionally causing reactions so that they can look like that there's a need for them in their service. But they're the ones causing the problems in the first place, only so that they can then offer the solution, which, it forms a dependency on the abusers. You become dependent on the abusers in situations like the Hegelian dialect is what it's called. So, like, that's really how you serve Christ, and, like, how do you do this? Through self-reflection, self-dialogue, understanding why you have certain emotional reactions, to words, to images, to thoughts. A lot of it comes from our childhood trauma. It causes a lot of, like, complex reactions, like, later on in life. And when you can understand why you have certain emotional reactions, like by forgiving yourself and having compassion for yourself, you're always going to be controlled by the external. And that's like what the Bible is once you quit needing external validation for your worthiness of love, you're never going to grow past your limitation on how you see yourself. Okay, so that's really how you begin that process of serving Christ, is unlocking, the words that you need in order to heal your soul, unlocking that from within yourself, through self-awareness, rehabilitation through self-awareness, right? Like, so, take the speck out of your eye, take the log out of your eye, and you'll see the speck in your neighbor's eye. Once you undo your reactions, you will see where others haven't undone their reactions, and you will be able to be that example for them when they're ready. You can't force someone to self-reflect. You can guide them and nurture them, but it's not your job to save people. Okay? People have their own relationship with God, and that's really what it's about. Is once you can bring God into their lives, then they will have a better connection to what knows what's better for them than any human. So that's really how, you heal people's soul eternally, so that they don't need anything outside of themselves to tell them right from wrong. Okay, so I guess I'll cut it there, and that's how you serve Christ, is by helping people separate right from wrong within themselves, and that's done through connection with God, open, honest connection.